Hey folks, it's Jim Hanson, and I am your East Coast Warlord.
And I'm Kurt Schlichter, and I'm your West Coast Warlord. And let's get right into it. After 7 years, we finally have the Durham report, and nobody cares.
Isn't that sad? I mean, the amount of people who care are the ones who care about the country. The rest of them are just like, meh, maybe it's okay if we go ahead and abuse all of the state security apparatus to attack a political opponent.
If you remember 2016, and I do because I'm old AF, every single day, Warlord Jim, we were seeing the newspapers with story after story about the Russian collusion nightmare, and it's terrible, and he's partying with Putin, and they're taking their shirts off, and hookers are peeing on them, and all that stuff. And now it's sort of like, oh yeah, Durham came and said it's all nonsense. Hey, look, George Santos.
Yeah, hey, and even worse, we basically made it up. I mean, what the most dangerous thing in the Durham report is that our state security apparatus took a bunch of second and third hand reports. You know, I know a guy who knows a dude who saw George Papadopoulos in a bar and he was drinking vodka. That means he's a Russian spy.
Moscow Mule! That nails it!
It's pathetic.
Everything is a lie and a scam. And the problem is, for them, now there's a problem for us because our norms and our rules are gone. The problem for them is they rely on the norms and rules. They leverage them to use it against us. I wrote about it in Town Hall. It's the normalcy bias. The conservatives naturally think everything is still the same. All the rules are in place. The institutions are neutral and focused on their jobs. And none of it's true. And then you have something like this come out, Warlord Jim, and people are like, whoa, this is a giant black pill for millions of Americans.
And let's hope, and the dangerous piece, though, is where is the reform going to come from? Who's going to do a damn thing about this? You know, the Republicans don't have enough power. They can hold hearings. What they need to do is impeach somebody. Again, I'm back to it. It's the only power we have for the next 2 years.
No, I think you're right. I think that's what they have to do, and especially since we also know that Joe Biden's family was taking money from foreigners, and the New York Times is like, well, Republicans have no proof Joe Biden took money. Yeah, his son took it, and his wife's, his son's girlfriend / daughter-in-law took it, and the grandchildren took it. But no, it wasn't. Yeah, he's pretty much exonerated, and it's just
there's no video of Joe actually accepting satchels of cash from the Chinese
with a little dollar sign on it.
Right? You know, he's at the Watergate
like
Hotel.
The Hamburglar.
No, we don't have to. I mean, when you fly your degenerate, junkie son with you on Air Force Two to conduct sales calls, selling access to you, and then take meetings with his clients, that's pretty much it. They can possum the new charges from the Durham report onto those, and go ahead and they need to get into some of the FBI guys and the rest of it. So somebody has to at least testify about this because the rest of it's been a waste of time.
Yeah, But the problem for the left in the long haul is when they destroy the institutions that they're using to exercise power, they're not going to be able to exercise power the way they were. The news media, the regime media, has so totally destroyed any authority it might have had, any residual respect among the majority of Americans, that now it's almost beside the point.
No, that's true. The question is, how do we take advantage of that? Because reforming the system, again, I'll go back to the thing. I think if any Republican gets into office, whether it's Trump, DeSantis, whoever, they need to start emptying buildings down the hill from where I live. But absent that, how do we use that, loss of credibility from the news media to actually start informing the American public about the things that they're doing?
Well, look, I think we're going to see a transfer of even more viewers and media consumers from the traditional neutral outlets to more specialized ones, by which I mean conservative. Right. Now, the New York Times is actually gaining subscribers. It's making money because subscribers are going to it. And why are they going to it? Because it supplies them with the left-wing garbage they want. But that's also going to drive other people out. That's going to provide opportunities. And, of course, I'm sure we'll be talking about Elon Musk a little later, because it seems like we're always talking about Elon Musk. There are huge new opportunities by this changed landscape, and we got to take advantage of them.
The institutional knowledge we gained of how far the deep state is willing to go in pursuit of taking down a political opponent was valuable. You know, because they started during the campaign and then during the transition and during Trump's whole presidency. And honestly, there are a lot of things I don't like about the guy, but can you imagine if he actually got to govern instead of spending, the first 2 or 3 years of his, actually the whole term, defending against spurious charges and garbage?
Well, Donald Trump likes to portray it as a personal affront to him, which it was, make no mistake.
True.
But it was also a personal affront to the tens of millions of Americans who elected him, whose voices were not heard. I keep hearing about our democracy, our democracy. Well, our democracy is dead because we have the deep state trying to overturn an election. We have a deep state refusing to enforce laws passed by the Congress and signed by a president. Look at our border. The country has changed in a fundamental way, and it's going to be very painful changing back. And, for no particular reason, I've been reading a lot about the Spanish Civil War. And, there are a lot of parallels there, including the complete destruction of the rule of law under the communist republicans. The Republicans in Spain were actually the communists, and is that going to be what happens in America? People are going to lose so much respect for the process that they feel they have to step outside it. I've often said, Warlord Jim, Trump is not, our last chance. Leftists, he's your last chance.
And obviously someone should write a book, perhaps How to Win the Second Civil War Without Firing a Shot, that explains we can win this thing still. And like you said, the left, more than anyone, has a stake in us continuing to play inside the rules. Because if it ever goes outside that normal process, that's going to be bad for them. The only thing that saves them is the fact that we are basically law and rule abiding by nature.
That's true. And when that default stops, it stops. And, I love that idea, that kind of book. I would blurb it right on the cover.
It got a great blurb from some guy, some crazed
dude.
right-wing degenerate.
Some
weirdo. That's kind of the point. Now we've seen, and nobody really denies, even the left has had to admit that, okay, maybe, they try to pretend maybe nobody broke any actual laws, and so that's why there weren't any, trials and convictions for the bad stuff. Not true. But at least they're acknowledging that the whole way it was done was wrong. And I wonder, are they afraid we're going to do it to them?
Well, they should be afraid, because I think the next president, Republican president, is going to wield his power without respect for the informal norms that used to limit the exercise of power. And why should he respect those? Why?
Yeah, no, they disrespected him. They threw him out. I mean, you said it a lot. It's one of my favorite things. You say, you guys just tell us what rules you want to play by, and we'll play. Yeah. Because the problem is they stopped playing by the legitimate rules, the constitutional Republican rules that this country was founded on, and they've turned it into a deep state, quasi-fascism. Now, you've got people like Ron DeSantis in Florida who's like, fine, you guys want to play? I'll play. I have executive power. I can do these things. I have a legislature that agrees with me. We can do things. They're going to hate that when we decide, okay, now that we have control of 2 branches of government, watch what we shove down your throats.
Yeah, and if you have somebody who's disciplined and focused and who has an administration that is full of loyal people as opposed to a bunch of clamoring dorks fighting with each other all the time and leaking like a sieve to the New York Times. Well, of course, Trump himself leaked like a sieve to the New York Times.
Take Maggie Haberman off your speed dial, buddy.
When they say you can dislike Trump, but you got to be afraid of DeSantis, they're right.
Yeah, no. Well, and I think there is a reason now people should be afraid of DeSantis, but it's not our team, it's the left.
Oh,
because
yeah.
what he's shown is that competent executive power wielded in conjunction with a legislature that shares your ideas and a bureaucracy not capable of stopping you leads to things we want as conservatives. I would love to see that at the federal level.
Oh, it's like a beautiful dream. Maybe some future segment on the Warlords, we ought to share our detailed, hot, sweaty fantasy about transferring the Department of Education to Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of real estate downtown D.C. that could go empty. First of all, and it could go empty and no one would notice. But second, moving it out into real America seems to me a great solution. It's been talked about a lot, and now that we've got remote work, there's no reason not to. Why let them own a company town to destroy our way of life?
What a beautiful thought. Well, anyway, next on The Warlords, we're going to talk more about woke beer. Stick around.
Hey folks, it's Jim Hanson, your East Coast warlord, and Kurt Schlichter, our West Coast warlord. I heard there's a new beer that's made just for chicks.
Jim, here's my thought. You have a brand like Bud Light or Miller Lite.
Huge brands.
They're billion-dollar brands. And you've got a loyal group, and it's mostly dudes who like to party, and they like chicks, particularly bubbly ones. And they enjoy Spuds MacKenzie, and they're fun guys. They just want to hang out. So naturally, you're going to want to put in charge of marketing to this demographic a bunch of gender studies majors from Wellesley.
Who then decide that, you know what dudes who drink light beer like? They like transsexual cosplaying losers like Dylan Mulvaney. Now, the specific one we're talking about now, Miller Lite, actually put out a commercial before the Bud Light controversy, and they basically decided that beer is a women's thing. Women invented beer, women brew beer, and they're going to do everything they can. They're going to shred all the old advertising, which objectified women, which is a fair point, and they're going to turn that into fertilizer so that women can grow beer. It was insane.
I mean, you're looking at that, and it's just baffling, because first of all, they're attacking their audience. You bunch of frat boys liked busty Swedish bikini babes.
How dare you?
Shame!
Let's be clear. 2/3 of beer drinkers are men. All right, that's established fact from the industry. So, okay, now it's fair to say you shouldn't crap on the 1/3 of your audience that is women. I get it. But to go ahead and say that that's such an evil thing, that all of you people who liked it are scumbag, knuckle-dragging troglodytes, is stupid.
Guys like hot chicks. We married hot chicks. We like hot chicks. I'm not going to apologize for that. There's no reason to apologize for that. This is part of kind of a social attack on cisgender, heterosexual, male sexuality. There's something wrong with you for liking pretty girls. Well, you know what? I like pretty girls, particularly my pretty girl. And other guys, they like pretty girls too. And I have no reason to apologize for it. There's nothing wrong with it. And just because you're a frigid Chardonnay drinking scold is not going to change that.
Here's another thing they may not have thought of. Hot chicks like to be liked. Oh my God.
Hot chicks like to be
It's
liked.
not like they were, press ganged out of a gender studies class and forced to put on bikinis and do their hair nicely and pose in beer ads. Okay, they competed to be in those beer ads, and there were long lines of girls who wanted to be in those beer ads because they like that. So, I mean, it's unfair to demonize that whole concept.
It's a cultural attack on traditional sexuality. Pretty women like being pretty women. Women like to be pretty. This is why it takes 3 hours for them to get ready to go out to the McDonald's drive-thru. They like to be pretty. That's what women... And guys like to be with pretty women. And there's nothing wrong with that. I refuse to accept this construct that somehow I should be ashamed for being freaking normal.
No, and here's the thing. I have absolutely no problem if they want to make beer ads for the 1/3 of beer drinkers who are women that have beefcake dudes walking into a bar or guys playing beach volleyball, whatever. Like you said, that's normal. Don't hate.
Well, look, as you know, as warlords, we're comfortable with who we are. We know there's no competition out there, and of course, an attribute of a warlord is unrestrained confidence. Take notes, young man.
Based
Take
on
notes.
victory.
Traditional sex roles have been under attack for a long time, and you see it in every kind. You see it in this. You can't like pretty girls. You see it at schools where they tell kids, well, you can't fight back with a bully or we'll suspend you too.
Right.
Everything is an attack on traditional male sex roles, which traditional women are perfectly happy with. We need to fight back and just say, no, we're not doing that. I'm not going to be a sissy. I'm not going to do the tuck dance from Silence of the Lambs to please a bunch of frigid harridans with cats and too much Haagen-Dazs.
And even, it's part of a larger destruction of normal. Like you said, it's the normal. They want to attack the normality of sexuality. And again, we can say that there is a normal without having to demonize people who do not fit within that. In that bell curve, you've got the bulk of humanity, and then you've got people who fall outside of that. We're not saying they're necessarily bad. We're saying
some of them are
stupid and bad. Some of them are bad, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. The ones who want to, shove their sexuality in the faces of kids are evil and bad and should be.
Yes,
but the rest of them, we're not judging them beyond saying, stop saying normal isn't normal. And stop saying it's bad to celebrate normal. There's nothing wrong with celebrating normal. It's normal to do that.
Well, normal used to be celebrated. You would see Spuds MacKenzie and a bunch of, happy people on a beach in bikinis and, swimsuits, partying down, enjoying their Bud Light. And now it's a gender studies class. They want to take the fun out of it. They want to make life all about their bizarre, stupid struggle. And we're not going to do that. I'm waiting, Warlord Jim, for a new movie to come out that's sort of like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where they basically say, here's hot chicks, and they have a serious story too. We've got to do a thing on Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
How come Moving in Stereo by the Cars is playing in my head right now? Is there a reason? Does anyone know why?
Well,
you know why.
If you were born in the 60s or 70s, you sure as hell do. But look, they don't make movies like that anymore. They don't make movies where normal guys can sit back with a beer and go, that's a pretty girl. They don't do that. Instead, it's like some dude, or it's a fat chick. Did you see they put a dude on the cover of Sports Illustrated? But it's now a different thing. You have the sensibilities of gay men and liberal Ivy League women running marketing at Miller, running Sports Illustrated, and there is a huge opportunity for people to appeal to normal people. Right. Maybe we ought to make movies.
I think that is something that might even be in the works. No, and but you hit the nail on the head. Our culture comes to us through a filter of, the Hollywood gay society, which is now queer, but whatever. It got weirder and worse.
LGBTQ, ABCDEFG,
right.
space
all
law,
of that. And then add into that feminist, agro-feminist thing where it's not enough to be equal. We have to tear down that which offended our forebears. And I'm sorry, that wasn't me. I wasn't doing that. I like strong women. That's one of the things that we're not scared of strong women. We just don't think the men have to become girls in order for that to work for everybody.
That's absolutely true. And I don't think men should have to apologize for liking girls in bikinis. There is nothing wrong with that.
Remember the Swedish bikini team?
I remember the Swedish bikini team.
As a Swede, I have three. I am Hanson, Swanson, Pearson. I am way Swedish. I was so proud when that happened.
You reek of herring.
My people, this is better than the Vikings, The Vikings were all dirty, greasy, nasty. I can respect that. But if we get the Swedish bikini team, we win.
As a guy who partakes of the Latin heat, I would not mind the Cuban bikini team. That would be right down the road for Kurt's demographic.
First, all right, we'll combine forces. We'll load up the Viking longboats. We will row over to Cuba, retake the island from the commie bastards, and start the Cuban bikini team.
Yes! Cuba
That's
Libre y Bonita.
That's how you warlord.
Oh, that is warlording to the max.
All right, well, now that we solved the world's problems, or started, we got a plan. We'll be back after the break with one of our favorite movies because it's got a Green Beret in. All movies with Green Berets are better than ones that don't.
And we're back on the Warlords with East Coast Warlord Jim Hanson and West Coast Warlord Kurt Schlichter. And Warlord Jim, we've got a movie to talk about.
Of course, we have one of the greatest movies. And as I mentioned before the break, all movies with Green Berets as the star are better than any other movie. And this is the archetypical one. I take that back. The archetypical one is The Green Berets with John Wayne.
Oh.
Brilliant. Beyond
fighting soldiers from the sky.
But First Blood, Sylvester Stallone as John J. Rambo was epic. It was the classic outsider abused by the system, fighting back and showing them why they probably should have just left him alone.
Just let him walk through your town, man. Just let him walk through a town. He's not hurting anybody. Just be cool. Don't light this fuse, buddy. You can everybody. Brian Dennehy as the sheriff. What is it? Jim Teasel was his name. Jim Teasel. Love that name.
One for that king shit cop. He drew first blood.
You drew first blood. Now, First Blood is one of those movies because you look at the other Rambo movies, which are fun in their own way, but they're not serious in the way this was a standalone movie, much like Dirty Harry, that set archetype, and then the movies got a little sillier as they went on, but. Right. First Blood is a really good action movie on its own term. You take out the Rambo mystique, and it's a really exciting, fun, well-done movie.
Yeah, and it was dark. It was darkly shot. Because obviously Pacific Northwest. Okay, yeah, rainy, dark, forest, and all that. But it gave that feeling of an actual story of the loner and showed his pain, when he's talking about what happened to his team, when he's talking about how the guys died and the pain. It was a dude with a wicked case of PTSD just trying to figure out what happened to him and his friends. And this idiot cop and his redneck buddies want to jump in and jack him around.
First of all, it's a really good performance by Sylvester Stallone. People forget that he's actually a good actor.
Yep.
Now, my objection is it's back at the old 80s stereotype of the weekend warrior National Guardsman, which changed significantly in the 90s when the Guard had to get serious. And, of course, it's a much different organization now. But
they needed your leadership is what they needed.
They could have used – Colonel Schlichter could have probably would have been a little different. But
that's one of the great moments in the movie. They've got Rambo cornered in a cave. They've got the National Guard guys outside. And the lieutenant is like, hey, you go up there and you go in that cave. The guy's like, screw that, Clinton. I ain't going up there. No way.
All right, Steve. Yo. I want you and Bruce, head around these trees. Go to the front of that mine.
Screw that, Clinton. I ain't going up there.
No way.
Clinton, it's my turn to be lieutenant.
Right? I gotta open the pharmacy tomorrow. I ain't gonna go get killed. It was. They dogged them, but you needed that. That was, they were the Imperial stormtroopers, who were there just to be abused.
It set a lot of the standards for movies. We hadn't seen it before. The kind of like special forces-y guy who like leveraged his skills. We back in like 1981, 82 when this came out, we hadn't really seen that. Now everybody's an operator. Everybody in the movie, you know. Yeah, but back then it was like, wow.
Navy SEALs, you know, and using that ball spinning on the nose skill they learned at Coronado. But here's the fun thing. I think my favorite guy in it is Rambo is Rambo, and he is that. Yeah. But it's Colonel Troutman.
Yeah.
Colonel Troutman makes that movie when he shows up, you know, and they're all in the tent arguing, and Brian Dennehy's saying, "Oh."
Never possessed God in heaven to make a man like Rambo.
God didn't make Rambo. I made him.
Who the hell are you?
Sam Troutman. Colonel Samuel Troutman.
And he's like, "Whoa!" And they keep throwing him softballs. They're like, we got 200 men we're going to send in after him. He's like, well, then you better remember one thing: good supply of body bags. You know? I mean, he had some of the best lines in the movie, and he's just like, hey, I'm just here to try and save you guys from my boy, you know.
I don't think you understand. I didn't come here to rescue Rambo from you. I came here to rescue you from him.
Richard Crenna, the last scene where he's, you know, Richard Crenna goes in to get Rambo out. Mm-hmm. That's, you know, suddenly Rambo's talking. He doesn't talk much during the movie, but suddenly he's talking about what happened. And that was one of the first movies to really, it preceded by several years Platoon, to talk about the experience of Vietnam vets. We'd seen The Deer Hunter. That was kind of an art film. We'd seen Coming Home. That was also kind of an art film. This was a film that talked about the experience directed to the same demographic as the men who fought that war.
It was a film for warriors, about a warrior, and he broke down. You know, that was the thing. Sylvester Stallone basically breaks down crying, talking about the shit he saw and the things that happened to his buddies. You know, I mean, that's the line I repeat all the time. I drive my wife nuts. They're all dead, sir. You know, when he's talking on the radio to Troutman, Rambo's talking to, he's telling him, you know, Troutman reads off the names of everybody in his squad, and Rambo says, they're all dead, sir. You know, they're gone. And Troutman's like, what about, you know, Delray or whatever? He says, nope. Got him slow, you know, the cancer or whatever from Agent Orange. And it was allowing that warrior mentality to show the damage it did to him without making him a wimp, you know? He's like, I don't want to have to do this anymore, but if you drew first blood, payback's a medevac.
Well, literally. You know, at the end, he walks out and allows himself to be arrested. And that's the thing. He allows himself.
Right.
You know, it's like, you guys don't have a say in this. It's going to go how I want it to go. So he's a badass, but he's a real character.
It was beautiful and, okay, over the top, of course. It wouldn't be any fun if it wasn't.
It wasn't that over the top, though. I mean, it wasn't, you know, the CGI spectacle.
That's true.
You know, guys having fist fights, falling out of trees and things. I mean, he does jump through a tree and he hurts himself, and there's a famous scene he's stitching himself up. But, you know, his tactics are not insane.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I think, you know, given the standards that they've gone to now, where everything has to blow up, everything has to have 1,000 gallons of gasoline, you know, in every single explosion. That's a fair point. It was because that was part of the darkness of it. It was all in the shadows. It was all
very dark,
operating in that forest as an element of the forest, as a primal piece of that forest. That once they went in there, hey, you're on my turf now.
And it's interesting because you don't see many movies set in, you know, wet northwestern forests. So it was a very alien environment,
right?
Almost, you know, in a way, kind of like Vietnam. And I remember because
jungle, but
I mean, but you weren't used to it because I was a California suburban kid. I went after school and saw it, and I'm like, well, this is kind of weird. It was unsettling because movies aren't usually there, so it's an unfamiliar area.
It spawned a lot of spin-off concepts because, okay, as a special forces guy, you immediately had people telling you, now don't go off being a Rambo.
Yeah.
You know, and they turned it in, and that was mostly the later movies
Yes.
where it got, you know, crazy and he's shooting exploding, you know, arrows out of his
He's firing an
compound.
RPG from one helicopter to another.
Right. It got a little out of control.
A little
but
silly.
it was also the big knife. You know, that was the thing. Okay,
Yeah.
his big knife was useful the way he used it, but it became something that everybody on a team kind of mocked. Because on a team, you're not going to carry a knife like that. On a special forces
They're
team, most
heavy.
people carried a Leatherman. Because you might need the pliers, and then you
Yeah.
still got a little knife if you got to cut stuff. But you weren't going to need to stick hogs and make spears and things. More likely, you were going to need a pair of pliers to take a piece out of a weapon that was broken. So that was the other joke: don't carry a Rambo knife. You know, okay, I get it. But he was that guy. He became so much of the iconic figure that Rambo became synonymous with that. And I think that's a sign of how important the movie was.
And we are back on the Warlords. I'm Warlord Kurt, and this is Warlord Jim.
Hey, I heard Elon compare George Soros to the supervillain Magneto. And oh my God, did you realize how completely inappropriate that was?
Well, at first I had to remember who the hell Magneto was because
Start
I'm
there.
not 12 and I don't know a lot about comic books. But then I remembered, and he was like the guy who was magnetic, hence the name Magneto. And I'm still not sure why this is literally the worst thing any human being has ever done in human history, but apparently it was. You can't call Soros Magneto. Can't do it.
Okay, now here's the angle, because
Uh-huh.
it's vital that we understand these stupid things.
Okay.
Magneto was actually a Holocaust survivor. And so one of the
Okay.
reasons he was supposed to be what he was is he was mad. He did not want a genocide done to, I read up on this because I didn't know either. He didn't want a genocide done to the ex-people mutants. So that was his whole thing.
All right, I don't
And-
blame it. Sounds good to me. I go.
All right. The problem is Soros was not that. Soros was actually a collaborator at one
Yes.
point with the Nazis against
That's
his own
what I
people.
understand.
But because Elon compared Soros to a person who's had some Jewishness to him, all of a sudden it's anti-Semitic, and we all must kill him.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm done with the whole you're anti-Semitic if you don't like Soros. This is where my theory comes into play. And my theory is this, Warlord Jim. Screw you. I don't care what you think. You can call me racist, sexist, Islamophobic, transphobic, anti-Semitic. I don't care what you say. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not going to shut up. Kiss my Chuck Schumer.
And that's it. You know, it boils down to one thing. I know what I think. I like to hate people for themselves, not for innate physical characteristics, all right?
Yeah.
I dislike humanity pretty much as a whole, and then I make exceptions for people I like, friends, family, whatever. It's a short list. But overall, I dislike most people. But I don't dislike them because they have extra melanin, or they have a different set of chromosomes than I do, or they go to a different church than I do. I don't hate them for that. I hate them for themselves, for what they do that makes them worthy of that. And I don't even invest a lot. Hate may even be too strong a word. You know, I dislike them and I oppose them, but I'm not going to take the time to hate someone just because of a characteristic. You know, it's like, you want to hate me because I'm white? No, that's stupid. Hate me because I'm a loudmouth, boorish jerk. That's fair.
Well, you know, if you get beyond the fact that raw bigotry is un-American and un-Christian, it's also lazy. Because there's a lot of reason to dislike people. I mean,
Right. Be
the
creative.
idea that somehow, I'd like Soros leveraging, little known DA races to basically undercut the rule of law in America's urban centers. Yeah, that's annoying. But you know what really gets me? He's one of those Jewish guys.
Right.
And also, I support moving the the embassy in Israel to its capital, and I support Arms for Israel. At the same time, it's
one of those ways
stupid.
they like to use stuff like that. Say, okay, you can't criticize black people, if you're white. You can't criticize Jewish people that we like on the left if you're not Jewish. And they just use it as a way to shut down dissent.
Yeah.
They don't really care. They know that we're not hating on him for that. But they'll find one idiot on the internet who, made some hawk nose or some other hook nose, whatever, comment about him. And all of a sudden, it's all anti-Semitic. No, it's not. As Kurt pointed out, there are a million reasons to hate Soros. Earning your money, crashing your own country's currency, using your money to subvert the political processes of another sovereign nation. Those are great reasons to hate somebody, and I'm down for doing that.
Well, look, Soros is a loathsome communist jerk. He's greedy and he's evil. He did crash currency. He's hurt a lot of people. And he continues to hurt a lot of people, and I dislike him. And I don't care what anybody says about it. It doesn't matter to me. The thing is, once again, and this is a continuing theme, when you destroy the norms, you don't get the protection of them. So if you destroy the norm that, it's really bad to call somebody bigoted, but I'm also going to call everybody bigoted even when they aren't, you've destroyed the norm of calling someone bigoted something significant. 30 years ago, someone said, you really sound like a bigot. You go, oh my gosh, I better take a personal inventory because
right.
I certainly don't want to be a bigot. Now it's like, you're just trying to scam me into shutting up. Bite
exactly.
me.
Racist is it's not even a card anymore. You can't even play racist. That's a joke. And now they've, like you said, the part of the destruction of normal is they've removed that protection from everyone else too by turning it into a simple, lazy way to stifle dissent. And I'm sorry, I never cared, Kurt never cared. Now the rest of you follow the warlord way, and who gives a shit what they say about us?
Exactly. Stop caring, because caring is the way they get inside your head and they control you.
Unless you're using the hashtag caring.
Unless you're using the hashtag
Ironic.
caring. I like the hashtag caring. I think that's great. But look, Elon's going to do what and Elon didn't back down.
No, he didn't.
Elon was like, no, here's what he did. I like how he said he found an arbitrage opportunity to spend a little money to get a huge effect undermining the laws by investing in these DA races. I was like, wow, great word, arbitrage. That's exactly what he did. And Elon, I love how Elon is coming right now. Elon's had a small step back. He said, most people would agree, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, most people would agree with reasonable gun control.
Yeah.
And no, Elon, when he looks at the issue, is going to come out our way. He's going to go, I think it's really important to have military-grade arms in the hands of the citizens because that defeats tyranny. And few people understand tyranny and the threat it poses like Elon Musk because he's seen it up close.
Well, and the other thing is, I don't mind him being wrong about the Second Amendment.
He'd be wrong.
As long as we can argue about it on Twitter. Yeah. That's what I want.
And
let's have a discussion.
And he's an open-minded guy. Yeah. I think he's going to look at it and go, I've heard the arguments and I've changed my mind. I watch for that to happen.
Or not. And here's the thing. I don't even care if he doesn't change his mind on that because I don't expect to win every argument. And there are some things that people just can't grasp why we can't do common sense gun control. And there is no common sense gun control is the problem without repealing the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
What they call common sense gun control. I hope everyone saw the scare quotes. So I don't mind having the argument. If you want to do these things that will take away our right to have the same weapon as a foot soldier in the military, then go ahead, make your case. And then go ahead and have a constitutional convention or do an amendment because there is no place in the Constitution that allows you to do that.
No, there truly isn't. And the thing I like is that Elon is bringing back the ability to argue.
Right.
Because he looks at things, and if he's convinced by evidence and facts, he has the potential to change his mind. Who else out there really shows, in our ruling class, shows the ability to change their mind based on facts? Basically, Elon.
You have to have the argument. That's what he did.
Yeah.
That's why buying Twitter mattered so much. Is if he's going to create that digital town square where we argue, and we can some people's minds will be changed, some people will be influenced, some people are going to stay believing what they want, and then we agree to disagree. But we at least have to have the argument in a meaningful way, and that's what he's facilitating.
Yeah, if you don't have the ability to change to change behavior by argument, then the only way you're going to change behavior is by power. And the left has decided it's easier to use power. The problem for the left is that the other side has not yet decided, hey, we've got the ability to use power too. Again, for no particular reason, been reading a lot about the Spanish Civil War lately.
And hey, if you guys want to make those the rules, we have pointed out before, that ain't going to be something you like when we play by them fully.
If only someone wrote a series of novels called the People's Republic series about that very thing.
Then we could shoot everybody, right? Kelly Turnbull shoots everybody.
Well, he does. He does not solve problems with his words. But I think we've solved the world's problems with our words, Warlord Jim. That's another killer episode of the Warlords.
And we'll be back next week. Stay tuned.